Welcome to This Explainer. So picture this. You're sitting in a crowded room. Maybe it's a loud family dinner or one of those lively office meetings, and you suddenly get this quiet, almost aching sense that you were just operating on a totally different frequency. Not that you're better than anyone, and definitely not that you're worse, just fundamentally, deeply different.
It's literally like everyone else is tuned into the exact same radio station, nodding along to the music, and you're picking up this entirely separate signal that absolutely nobody else can hear. You know that feeling? You've probably spent years wondering why everyday conversations often feel so hollow, or why the exact things that seem to fire other people up just completely drain the life out of you.
Well, today, we are unpacking that exact lived experience. Here is our roadmap for This Explainer. First, you are not broken. Then, navigating the social world. Third, the deep processing engine. Fourth, silence and emotional regulation. Fifth, the observer's mindset. And finally, we'll go from quirks to wisdom. Let's just dive right into this map of your cognitive depth.
Starting with Section 1, you are not broken. We are reframing the psychological reality here.
I want to pause and just slow down for a second because this is absolutely crucial. That heavy feeling of being fundamentally different, it's not loneliness, it's not depression, and it certainly doesn't mean you're broken. Actually, it's data. Psychologists have identified a very specific cluster of traits found in deeply wired minds, and today we're looking at that exact data. If you are completely done shrinking yourself just to fit into rooms where you don't belong, this is your ultimate validation.
Moving on to Section 2, navigating the social world. Let's talk about why human connection completely exhausts you. Look, we live in a world that is practically custom-built for extroverts, and because of that, your natural need to step back and withdraw gets pathologized. Notice this stark contrast. Society slaps on labels like antisocial, awkward, or even paranoid. But what's the actual psychological reality? You just require low stimulation recovery, and you possess high affective empathy. Your brain isn't broken, it's just running a highly expensive, invisible background app of pattern recognition at all times.
Let's break down what that really means. Low stimulation recovery periods are not a luxury. They are a biological necessity. Think about it. During every single conversation, your brain is quietly analyzing tone shifts, it's calculating hidden intent, it's running these massive predictive models. It is exhausting. So when you go off to recharge in solitary, you're not withdrawing from the world. You're returning to yourself after an intense, invisible mental workout. You're basically running a marathon in your head while everyone else is just taking a casual stroll. And because you have this high affective empathy, you are instantly reading nonverbal data and microexpressions. This creates a powerful biological need for depth. It's why making small talk about the weather or weekend plans feels almost physically uncomfortable for you. And all of this culminates in what we call existential isolation. You feel slightly outside of every room you enter, mostly because you carry the heavy, totally one-sided burden of knowing things about people that they haven't even consciously expressed yet.
All right, Section 3, the deep processing engine. We're getting into the mechanics of an analytical mind.
So here, we transition from how deeply you feel others to how relentlessly you process the world around you. Society loves to label this kind of cognitive depth as overthinking. Or if you refuse to do superficial busy work, they'll just call you lazy. But the reality? You have an incredibly high need for cognitive closure. Your mind simply refuses to accept incomplete information, and you cannot be bought with external bribes.
The key here is a concept called the need for cognition. Think of it like a mental itch that you just absolutely have to scratch. It's an intrinsic, built-in motivation to engage in really effortful thinking. You don't just settle for simple, wrong answers. This trait is the engine behind major creative breakthroughs, even if the daily cost is that every single answer you finally track down immediately spawns 10 brand new questions.
Before you engage with, well, pretty much anything, your brain runs this incredibly sophisticated filtering mechanism. Step 1, a quiet calculation of the energy cost. Step 2, checking if it actually aligns with your internal values. And Step 3, engaging only if it passes those first two and is genuinely meaningful. If an opportunity fails this test, there is no way you can be pressured into faking some false passion for it.
Which leads us to this huge light bulb moment. The real problem is that they mistook your standards for your ceiling. Just let that sink in. When bosses or teachers or anyone called you unmotivated, they completely missed your high internal value system. Your lack of engagement was never a limit of your ability. It was a strict standard of your integrity.
Section 4. Silence and emotional regulation. Finding comfort in chaos and quiet.
I want to intentionally slow our pace down right here, just to mirror the kind of steadiness this next trait requires. When chaos hits, you might be the person who goes totally quiet. Society often labels that as being cold, distant, or just plain strange. But the psychological reality, that is advanced distress tolerance and a profound peace with your own thoughts. Stepping back during a crisis isn't you being unfeeling. It's your rare capacity to fully process the storm before you react to it. This brings us to distress tolerance. It's the ability to just sit with intense emotion without letting it control you. Now, a lot of people spend years in therapy or reading thick books on Stoic philosophy trying to learn this, but for you, it's kind of just your default factory setting. The ability to hold intense feelings without being destroyed by them is a massive, massive strength.
Let's look at Section 5, the observer's mindset, watching the world and your own potential.
This observer mindset speaks right to that stark gap between the reality you currently live in and the immense capabilities you know you have inside you. First, there's precocious development, which is basically an early onset of existential awareness. Second, the achievement capability gap. This is that constant quiet mourning for the unlived version of your potential. And third, higher order monitoring. It's almost like you're floating above your own body, analyzing social interactions while you are simultaneously participating in them. It creates a very specific, weird kind of psychological isolation.
But here is the brilliant upside. This observer mindset also creates profound intellectual humility. Look at how this works. You encounter compelling, contradicting evidence. Instead of getting defensive, you immediately separate your ego from your opinions. And finally, you experience changing your mind as actual progress. While everybody else is out there fighting just to be right, you are fighting to get it right.
This perfectly captures your entire operating system. You would rather discover the truth than protect your ego. That is not a sign of weakness, my friends. It is the absolute ultimate marker of true emotional security, cognitive discipline, and a mind that genuinely wants to grow.
Bringing us to our final part, Section 6, From Quirks to Wisdom, Connecting the Dots of an Exceptional Mind.
Everything we've covered today, the social exhaustion, the relentless deep processing, it all pulls together into a cohesive picture of wisdom. Right at the heart of this is integrative complexity. This is your ability to take ideas from seemingly unrelated fields and weave them into a much broader, interconnected map of reality. You aren't just hoarding random facts, you're connecting dots that other people think belong to completely different puzzles, which makes your understanding of the world incredibly deep. Just consider the core difference in your entire operating system compared to the norm. The average mind is always searching for certainty, and it treats failure as a massive threat to its identity. But the exceptionally different mind, it searches for understanding, and it treats failure as nothing more than actionable feedback. You value the courage to keep asking better questions way more than the comfort of having easy answers. So, if you have spent your whole life feeling like you never quite fit the mold, I want to leave you with this final, provocative reframing. Ask yourself, what is this difference trying to teach me? It is officially time to stop treating your uniqueness like it's some problem you have to solve and start developing it as your absolute greatest strength. Thanks so much for joining me in this explainer, and keep learning.